Hey folks, Matt from artoftheimage.com. So I thought I'd show you a little comparison. Everybody's interested in the 50s. 50 millimeters are one of the most popular lenses, and for good reason. And now that the new Nikon 50 f1.4 or f1.8G is out, I wanted to show you the 50 f1.4G and the 50 f1.8D side by side. So the three of them. So here we have it. This is the little 50 mil f1.8D. So this is the predecessor to the new 50 f1.8G. Let's see if I can get all these names straight here. So very small, very tiny. I have a screw-on hood on here, so the lens is really small in comparison to, that's the 1.4G, here's the 1.8G, and you can see them side by side, very small on the D versus the G. So the G has really taken on a size boost since the D version, as far as, and most of that would be from the AFS motor, I'm thinking. So there's the f1.8G, and the nice thing about the f1.8G is it does come with the hood, and here is the f1.4G. Now, going up the ladder from these, the f1.8D, f1.8G, and f1.4G, it is pretty much the same in weights too. Surprisingly enough, the f1.8D and the f1.8G weigh about the same when I'm holding them. I'll check the actual specs for you, but they basically feel about the same, even though the G is a fair bit bigger. Now, when you step up to the f1.4G, you can feel that this is probably about twice the weight of the f1.8G, just at a guess holding them in my hands, and that would be more so due to the optics of the f1.4, the faster optics. So I've got the actual specs rundown here for you, and I thought we'd just kind of look at what the differences are. So the f1.8D has a minimum aperture of f22. Now, by comparison, on the new f1.8G, its minimum aperture is f16, so a little bit of loss of minimum aperture there. Probably not a big deal for most people. Typically, you're not using the 50 mil as a landscape lens, so typically, you know, f16 is going to be fine. My only question would be is, as we know, as you stop down, you hit a sweet spot and then start to lose resolution at a certain point. These lenses are actually built to perform fairly wide open, or else what's the point of having that speed? So having one that goes to f22, that's the D, it may still be sharper at, say, f10 than the newer one might be, because the newer one might be more stopped down in comparison for minimum aperture. I don't know, just a guess, thinking about that as I read these specs. Both have, obviously, the f1.8 maximum aperture. The big difference between the two is that the one obviously has the motor in it, the new G version. And what do we have here? Angle of viewing, maximum angle of view is pretty much all the same. Maximum reproduction ratio is 0.15 times, pretty much all the same. The D version is 6 lens elements in 5 groups. The new G version is 7 lens elements in 6 groups. So they haven't just added an AFS motor to the D version, they've actually redesigned this lens. And that's probably where we're seeing that people are saying how sharp and how nice this new lens is. Not that the other one wasn't, because I love my D, but I think we're going to find that the f1.8G is a little nicer. Now, they're both compatible to FX and DX, meaning you can use them on either your crop sensor cameras, your DX, or you can use them on the full frame, the FX bodies. Diaphragm blades, each of them has 7, so they each have 7 blades in the diaphragm, so no difference there. They have the super integrated coating. Both of them do, although I would suspect that perhaps it's an updated, the newer coatings, I think, on the 50 f1.8G, so possibly there is where we're going to see some distance. Minimum focus distance is roughly exactly the same, 1.5 feet, 0.45 meters on the D, and 1.48 feet, 0.45 meters on the G, so splitting hairs there, you know, it's basically 1.5 each. And let's see what else we have in the differences category. It doesn't look like much. The filter size on the new 50 f1.8G is 58 millimeters, whereas the filter size is 52 on the D. So if you do use filters, you're going to pay more for filters on the 50 f1.8G than you are on the 50 f1.8D. Not a huge difference, 58 millimeters to 52, but a difference nonetheless. So they both accept screw-on filters. The D comes with the front and rear lens caps. The G comes with front and rear lens caps. But the G also comes with this nice hood that it's supplied with, as well as the pouch bag that came with it that I showed you in the unboxing video. So those are the main differences there. Oh yes, and weight. 5.5 ounces or 155 grams for the 50 f1.8D, and 6.6 ounces or 185 grams for the 50 f1.8G. So it is a little heavier. It's about 30 grams heavier. So not a lot. These are both quite light lenses. In comparison, the 50 1.4G is 280 grams. So it literally is almost twice the weight of the 50 f1.8G, as I had suspected just from holding them. So let's now have a quick look at the specs on the 50 f1.4G and just look at that in comparison to the f1.8G and just see what the differences are there. So obviously we have the faster aperture of f1.4 versus the f1.8. We have minimum field of view the same, maximum angle of view in DX and FX pretty much exactly the same. Maximum reproduction ratio 0.15 times, so they're all the same on the reproduction ratio. And the 50 f1.4G has 9 blades in the diaphragm versus the 7 of the two f1.8s. Now what that might tell us is that the f1.4G has a nicer bokeh, a nicer blown out background area. Not necessarily a given, but typically more blades is a nicer bokeh. However, all reports I've seen so far on the f1.8G, very nice bokeh. So that remains to be seen. I'll be checking that out. They both have the super integrated coatings. The minimum focus distance is 1.5 feet for both of them, so no difference there. And as I'd mentioned earlier, the weight differences. The f1.8G is 185 grams or 6.6 ounces. The f1.4G is 280 grams or 9.9 ounces. Not a great deal of weight difference. The difference is great, but they're all very light lenses, so it's not a big deal. It's not like we're talking 5 pounds versus 8 pounds here. Although, yes, the 50 f1.4G is about almost twice as heavy as the f1.8G if you want the really light lenses. So, they both come supplied with bayonet hoods. They are actually, I think, the exact same hood. Yep, they both have the HB47 hood on them, and they both come with front and rear caps and lens cases. So, basically, a lot of similarities there, and a few differences. Obviously, the biggest two differences being the weight and the speed, f1.4 to f1.8. f1.4 to f1.8 doesn't sound like a lot, and for most people it's not. In certain circumstances, it could be a world of difference to you. For me, I love 50s, so I'm probably not going to sell any of my 50s. But I may end up shooting with my 50 f1.8G, the new one, more than my 50 f1.4. If indeed it's faster focusing, as I'm hearing, that'll be a clincher for me, because the little bit of extra speed, I'd rather have the faster focus speed than I would the extra aperture speed. So that's a comparison of the three of them, folks. This is the 50 f1.4G for you, 50 f1.8G, and the 50 f1.8D, the older one. You can still get this one, the D. It's about $130 or so, depending on where you buy it, versus $2 something for the f1.8G, and versus almost $500 for the f1.4G. So the f1.8D, probably the best value of the bunch. But if you have a D3100, D5100, any of the cameras that need an AFS-G lens, they don't have a built-in motor, you can't use the D for autofocus. So that's where the new 50 f1.8G is great for you folks that have a D3100 or a D5100, any of the other cameras that don't have built-in focus motor. So there you go, folks. We'll be back soon with some testing. I'll try to do some side-by-side testing, and for the moment I'll be really concentrating on shooting the f1.8G, and then we'll get into looking at the comparisons. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon with some new video posts, some new articles. We'll keep you up to date with what's going on in the world of photography here at artoftheimage.com. Thanks a lot.